The Saab factory in Sweden, which of course was responsible for making many of our beloved Saabs over the years, as well as the development of those cars, finally has a new purpose, and it's for something that you probably wouldn't imagine. At least it's not for something that I imagined, and that is for making AC Cobra British sports cars. The Drive, which is an online car publication, had two articles in the last couple of months on the Saab factory, and I'll link both of them in the description box if you want to read through them in depth yourself. But today I want to announce sort of what's going on, because I think in the grand scheme of things, it's some fantastic news for the town of Trollhättan, as well as just to see that building with all that history be repurposed for a new car. Yes, as you can see here, the AC Cobra, which we'll get into what that is here in a bit, is going to be built at the old Saab plant. And I think that's just a very odd combination of a car to make in that area. I mean, you look at the AC Cobra and obviously it harks back to the classic Shelby Cobra that was made back in the 60s, but with a modern twist. But it's just odd. I wouldn't think of that car being produced in Trollhättan, Sweden. But it should be a great boost for the economy there, create some jobs and some other, great benefits as well. But as the article alludes to here, Saab's historic factory in Trollhättan hasn't been up to much since they built the final 9.3 in 2014. And it mentions here that the assembly line is being parted out. So I want to mention that here because this links to a separate article that I wanted to discuss briefly. That is, the Saab factory was actually liquidating all of the equipment and machinery and things that they had in the factory. So I'll skim through this very quickly just because I want to get to the main topic of today's video. But they were selling an extreme amount of machinery and things. This is like presses and manufacturing equipment. So like probably the moldings that were used to make fenders or bumpers, or maybe the equipment used to make seats, or whatever they made in that factory. They were sort of liquidating all of those assets and selling them off. Now, if there was a very wealthy Saab enthusiast that had a ton of space, I think that could be super cool to own something like that. I'm hoping that all this stuff, if it has sold by now, has gone to good hands. I'm sure a lot of that stuff would go great in the Saab Museum, both in Sturgis and Sweden as well. Here's a picture of some of the equipment that they were selling. Again, all sorts of stuff in here. Machines, presses, various things that I don't even know the function of them, but I know that they went into creating Saab. So I'm not going to go through this in any more detail, but if you want to check out the full article in the description, I will link it there. But let's get back to the topic of today's video. So now that they have gotten rid of all of that equipment, and I think, for lack of a better term, kind of gutted the factory and created a blank slate, we now have a company called T Engineering, which was apparently formed from the ashes of Saab, meaning that it was formed by a lot of former Saab engineers, and they're going to build the new AC Cobra in this factory. So here's some information on T Engineering. Again, it was founded by a group of former Saab engineers, and they specialize in helping car companies develop, test, and build vehicles. Of course, large automakers handle the majority of development, testing, and manufacturing in-house, but enlisting the help of T Engineering makes sense for a smaller company like AC Cars. This just shows how much history there was in that factory, as many of you probably know. This is where they developed and built the 900 Turbo and other models, and it's going to help bring the Cobra into the 21st century. So they do have some photos of the Cobra throughout this ad. It's essentially a modern take on the original Cobra from the 60s, like I mentioned earlier. But just to touch on that very briefly, they're going to outsource production of the Cobra to T Engineering. So both models will look a lot like the original Cobra made from the 60s, but they are new under the body. So that means a new space frame chassis. They ride on an extended wheelbase that clears up more interior space, and they're fitted with electronic power steering. So you get the old look, but with modern tech, modern suspension, modern performance as well. Not to say that the original Cobra was slow, but you can see that they have the naturally aspirated 5-liter Coyote V8, which, for those who don't know, that's kind of the motor that comes in a lot of the Mustangs. They also have a supercharged version of that V8, which produces 663 horsepower and 575 foot-pounds of torque, respectively, which is just an insane amount of power for any car, much less a car that is as small as the Cobra. 6-speed manual or 10-speed automatic. So I imagine that that's the same automatic and manual that are also offered in the Mustang and various other Ford products. So here's some photos. They have both a coupe and a roadster. I'm a little bit biased towards the roadster. I think it looks a lot more like the original Cobra, but you also have the coupe if you want the coupe, especially if you're in Britain where these cars are... Well, that was odd. Especially if you're in Britain where these cars are from. These do come at a very hefty price though. AC is going to be charging about $250,000 for the Roadster and $285,000 for the coupe at the current conversion rate. The supercharger is optional. I'm sure that will be an added cost. So a very expensive car, but for someone who wants that nostalgic look, it can definitely be a cool buy. So I think that just off the bat, my initial gut reaction is this is a very niche market to be building a car out of that factory. So it's not Polestar who's contemplating taking over that factory, I believe. It's not Koenigsegg, who of course is a niche car brand as well. But this is more of a, it seems like a less established car brand. It's not Ford going in there and opening a plant. So hopefully this will be successful and will last. The CEO of T Engineering also mentioned that they might be doing a 2.3 liter turbo 4 or an electric drivetrain, which will be continued to be made in England, it looks like. So last little bit of information here. This actually isn't the first time that the Swedes and Brits have collaborated on the car. So the Saab 99, which was released in the late 60s, went on sale with a 1.7 liter straight 4 that was manufactured in England by Triumph. So some of you older Saab fans probably know that, but if you didn't, that's kind of a cool little piece tying these two things together. Of course, they ended up going on to the B-Series engine, which is the most famous engine known in most of the Saabs, the B201, B202, all the way up to the B204, B235, B205, etc. Those B-Series motors that Saab was so well known for. But that is kind of the gist of what's going on in Trollhättan at the old Saab factory. I think it's super cool on top of this that they will also have access to the test track that's there, which I'm sure was a huge point in them wanting to go to that factory. Having a test track there is going to be a phenomenal little added benefit, especially for a high performance car like this. But at the end of the day, I do still think it's a very odd choice of a car to be made there, but it makes sense given the context that's provided in this article. So if you enjoyed this video, if you live in Trollhättan, please let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What does the local population think of this news that is hopefully coming very soon to your town? I'm very curious. Also, I know I've been making a lot of content lately where I've been standing in the garage talking, doing some more list type videos and news type videos. That's mainly because we are actually in the process of moving. So once we get established in the new house, which is still in Phoenix, I will both show you guys around that new garage and setup of the garage, but we'll also hopefully be back to wrenching on these cars. If you all enjoyed this video though, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts on AC Cobra before. I think it's super cool to provide a modern take on such an iconic classic sports car. But that's all for today. I'll see you in the next one.